Hey guys, Matthew here, and in today's video we're going to be looking at the third of these strategies when it comes to the Get Rich Quick series. Now, a quick recap or a quick reminder that the Get Rich Quick series is all about getting you guys a head start on the competition, on other players in league start scenario. It's not about things that you can do right now. Another thing to note is that every method in the Get Rich Quick series are going to have upsides and downsides. One of the biggest upside of this method is that it doesn't require you to stop your progression. You'll be able to do this as you also, keep working on your atlas, because there is a limited supply of these blighted maps, which is what I'll be talking about today, in the market. Therefore, you'll be doing them when they're available at a reasonable price, and then all the rest of the time you'll be, continuing your atlas and progressing your character, getting some good XP, all that stuff. Note that blighted maps are actually quite good for XP as well, as long as you don't die. We're going to talk about how to set those up in a minute here. All right, one of the downside, however, is that compared to, say, the endless heisting, the results are not going to be anywhere near as good. Now, in my opinion, they're still quite good. So here's the test that I ran quite a few times. So what I did is I got 10 T1 blighted maps. Now, we looked and I spoke to people, and it seems to be about 10C for a blighted map in a league start scenario for a T1, right? And this is very important. A T1 is about 10C. So I ran 10 of them, and I ran this test multiple times, probably about 5-6 times, and it did seem to be quite consistent. I put 3 teal oils. We'll talk about why teal oils in a second, more so than just the fact that it's faster. So 30C there, because normally, like right now, if you want to buy 30 teal oils, it's probably going to cost you like 5C, because there's an insane amount of oils available. In a league start scenario, oils are actually a finite resource, so they have value. Even the worst ones can sell for a chaos, because if you need them for an Anoint, right, nobody's going to sell you one for like 1 fusing or 1 jewelers or something like that. People are just going to put chaos, and that's what people pay for. So 30 teal oils for 10 blighted maps, 30C, and then some chisels. Very important to chisel your map. Now, it wasn't a thing before, but nowadays it is. The quantity on the map will actually apply to the pump at a 20% value, which means if you can juice up your maps nowadays, it's absolutely worth it to do so, because it doesn't apply, to just the pump. It also applies to the chest at a 20% value, which is huge, because look at it this way. It's 20% more loot if you can get 100% quantity on your map. Normally, maps, if you're, especially in a league start scenario, if you're just going out and go kind of thing, we're looking at about 50 quantity, which means about 10% more loot, which is not bad because it's 10% more profit that you're going to be making. All right, so the time spent to run these 10 maps was about 1 hour and 10 minutes, and this included buying the maps, sorting the loot, and everything else, right? So this is a actual very, very quick sort of run because of the fact that we are using teal oils. Like I said, we'll go back to that. Now, in terms of loot, I got about 80C worth of oils. I counted anything amber and above at 1C each, up until crimson at 3C, and I think black oils at 3C as well. That was what I did. Because the reality is, again, in the league start scenario, people who need amber oils for their anoints, which is very common, it's a really good one for early anoints, will pay 1C because they don't want to go through the hassle. Verdant, Teal, Azure, all the other ones, kind of the same thing. Up until Crimson, that's where there's a bit of a jump in price, and black oils are also a little bit more expensive. So about 80C worth in those 10 maps. Then we got some stacked decks. Now, that was actually fairly consistent between these different tests of 10 maps. There would always be 2 or 3 maps that would drop me a few stacked decks. Amounted to about 15 to 20 of them between every test. So almost a stacked deck per map, which is not great, but it's something. Random assorted uniques, it also seemed to be about pretty consistent, especially in a league start scenario. You have to remember that all those one-off uniques are actually worth a few chaos. About 20C there, nothing crazy. Essences also seem to be pretty consistent. A lot of screaming essences. You can get 5 to 10 screaming essences in a single little pack of essences. It's pretty crazy how many essences will drop from there. They are pretty rare, however, but it did seem to be pretty consistent, about an average of maybe 20C per test of 10 maps. Random assorted currency, so that can be divines, fusings, jewelers. You have to remember that all those currencies are worth a lot in a league start scenario, right? For example, fusings are like 2 to 1, or even sometimes 1.5 to 1C. I think I calculated them at 2 to 1, however. For example, regrets are sometimes nearly a chaos each. Scours can be very expensive, right? Low tier currencies are actually worth a ton of currency. So 160C there. The currency alone basically pays for the entire maps, the oils, and the chisels and everything else. Now, one thing to note, however, is that these teal oils, you're actually not going to have to buy them because you're going to self-sustain the teal oils as you're running the maps yourself, which is a pretty big deal because it's also going to cut through that time required to buy the maps. The fact that you don't have to worry about buying teal oils, all you have to do is set a buy order on the maps themselves. And then Chaos Recipe. Chaos Recipe is absolutely mandatory with the strategy. It's where a lot of the money is also going to come from. You get so much jewelry. I was actually impressed. I was surprised. I was like, whoa, this is insane. The amount of jewelry that you get in Blighted maps is literally unethical. You can come out of a Blighted map with like 30, 40, 50 pieces of jewelry in a single map. It is insane because if you compare that to the people who are just regularly mapping and going through the Atlas, the amount of jewelry that you get is nowhere near, not even close, as much as you get in these single Blighted maps for hours of gameplay. So about 100C worth of Chaos Recipe. Now, if you're going to be doing the Chaos Recipe, I highly, highly recommend using a Chaos Recipe tool. I'll be going over that, the one that I personally enjoy using. It's going to be linked in the description as well. So the profit. The profit in 1 hour and 10 minutes was about 250 chaos, and this was including the price. So 250 chaos in a league start scenario, you have to think the exalts are like, I don't know, 60, 70, 80C. It's anywhere between 3 to 4 exalt an hour while you're actively running these maps, which is much better. Honestly, much, much, much better than just regularly, mapping and progressing your Atlas. However, of course, the time that you do spend in these maps, you are not going to be progressing your Atlas. You're not going to be getting to endgame bosses, not going to be getting, the Cyrus, Maven, invitations, etc., etc. But in my opinion, if you want to make some early quick currency, let's just say your build is going to be like 20 exalts or something, right? Or 15, 20 exalts. And you need those exalts to really get your build going, really hit the road, run it, hit the ground running. Then I would say it's absolutely worth it to, do this sort of strategy while you're also completing your Atlas and working on your maps and all that. And then basically once you have the foundation of currency to make your build as strong as it needs to be to do the endgame content, then you move away from this strategy. Now let's talk about how to do this, because one of the advantages of this strategy, is that it is available to literally every single build. It doesn't matter what you do, how your single target, how good or bad your single target is, none of that matters. Your towers are literally all you need. So that's another thing that's really cool. So let's talk about that. First off, let's look at the oils. So there is a specific drop level to different oils in the game. So as you can see, black oil is 68, which is the equivalent of a T1 map. So this is why I did the test on T1 maps, because I figured it's going to be the easiest that I can do. In a league start scenario, there's not going to be a million of these Blighted maps available, right? That being said, Opalescent at 73 is barely a T6 map, which means yellow. So any yellow Blighted map will be able to drop Opalescent oils. So if, they appear and they're around the same price as the white maps, there's no reason not to get them. They have a better oil at the end that can drop. Opalescent being worth about 10 to 12C in a league start scenario, pretty damn good. Next, we have the silver oil. The silver oil is 78, which is T11 maps, and this is a pretty massive jump, right? Because T11 maps means that you're going into red maps, means red Blighted maps, and most of the time, those are actually going to be very, very pricey because of these silver oils, which are worth about half an exalt. And then, of course, you have the golden oils, which starts dropping at tier 13. And in T13s, you can drop golden oils worth about an exalt in a league start scenario, but that's not what we're working on. When it comes to the strategy, it's all about those early white maps because they're extremely cheap. 10C for a Blighted map, which is going to give you more than that just in Chaos Recipe, okay? It's really, really good, unironically. Another thing to note is how to actually go about running these maps. So what I personally do is I do 3 teals. I already mentioned that. The reason for that is that blight monsters in areas spawn 25% faster. This does stack, which means 75% faster spawns. And encounter duration is 40 seconds shorter, which also stacks, which means it's 120 seconds shorter, which means it's 2 minutes shorter. And normally a blighted map is about 5 minutes. So you actually end up cutting nearly 50% of the time that it takes to run them. However, if you're struggling, absolutely struggling with, clearing these Blighted maps for one reason or another, like I said, though, you shouldn't because towers alone will carry you. What you can do is put 2 teal oils and then an amber oil because amber will reduce the cost of building and upgrading towers, which means you can put more towers all over the place. It can be good, especially when it comes to taking care of the bosses. Because Teal oils will spawn like 8 bosses at a time, and if you're not on top of your tower game, you can easily fail the map. Alright, now one thing that is very important, the towers that you're going to be putting down are scout towers. Scout towers are the purple towers. So let me see, PoE scouts. Let's see, PoE scout tower. My bad, I should have had that opened already. So the scout towers, let's see, this is what they look like. The scout towers are the 3rd upgraded purple tower. You're basically going to have 2 options. Either you go with sentinel or you go with scout. What you want is scout. Now, the reason is because if you use this on your rings, you can do it twice. It's going to give 50% range to your scout towers, and at that point, they're basically off-screening monsters. So all you have to do is put a bunch of them around the pump, right? Put a bunch of scout towers around your pump, and then also put a green tower, a green upgraded tower, which is this guy here. Improves the damage effectiveness of other towers, does not damage enemies. So this is the 3rd upgraded of the green stuff. And this one upgrades the towers, right? It doesn't affect you, it affects your towers. So you put a bunch of the scout towers around the pump, you put one of these around, to touch as many of your scout towers as possible, and your scout towers are going to absolutely annihilate the map. Then all you have to do, if you're struggling, is also put a couple of the freeze towers a little bit on the outskirts of the map, because like I said, your scout towers will be able to basically shoot literally across your entire screen. So if you put a few of these, not too far away from you, because the way the towers work in Blighted maps is that if you go too far away from them, which I think is like 2 screens or something, they stop shooting, right? They disable. So you have to stay around your towers very close, which is why it's really good to have like a bunch of them stacked on top of each other with the, empowering tower alongside a few of the slowing towers. And if you're struggling with single target, you can also cast a few Meteor towers. So Meteor towers is this one over here. It is the fully upgraded fire tower, and basically it rains meteors from the sky, quite literally. And this does an insane amount of single target damage. It's not good for clear because it's not consistent, but when it hits like a truck. And the way that the scout towers work, right? The way that the scout towers work is that they actually aggro the monsters that are coming in, so that they stay in a very small portion of the arena or of the map, right? So then your meteor can hit right on top of that, and boom, even bosses will get absolutely annihilated. You can literally AFK these, and what I mean by that, you can't actually AFK because you need to build towers. But you can AFK in a sense that your character should not have to do anything. Towers should be plenty. So anyways, that's pretty much it for the strategy. In terms of the Chaos Recipe tool that I was talking about that I personally use, I use Chaos Recipe Enhancer made by Kosachi. I'll link this in the description like I previously said. There is like a guide on how to use it, how to download it. There's a Discord for it if you need any help. It is a really good tool. I made a video about it as well on this tool and how to use it. But essentially what it does is that it will highlight items on the ground, basically based on your requirements. And some of the requirements that you can put is, for example, how many of a certain item that I want to see. And once you hit this certain amount in your stash, it's going to stop showing them. For example, you can see that you want a maximum of 8 sets at a time. So because, body armors are much more common than, say, rings, it's going to stop showing you body armors on your filter itself after you have 8 of them in your stash, because until you have 16 rings, those 8 body armors serve absolutely no purpose, right? So it's really cool because it not only makes it super easy to do the Chaos Recipe because of the search function like this, it works for non-quad tabs, but it also works for stash tabs. So there's an overlay that will appear and tell you basically the order in which to pick up the loot from your inventory to do the Chaos Recipe, so that you can fit 2 Chaos Recipes in one inventory at a time, which is also great. It's a really nice tool. Highly recommend using it if you're going to do the strategy, because a lot of your currency will be coming from Chaos Recipe. Now, before I go, as always, I want to say massive thank you to my ever-growing list of patrons. Absolutely fantastic. Kat, Alex, Brandon, Nate, the other Alex, Flame Scorpion, Neroth, Grimoire, the Great Master, Johnny, Thomas, Reese, Tim, Axel, Road to Millions, Adicus, Scott, Stan, Zarashi, Welcome Back, and Wolverine, as well as Ronald, Kevin, the other Alex, Bitizen, and Mercury. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.